Hey guys, today we are gonna go over everything that I watched in October, so grab a snack because this is one of the longest ones that I will have. Okay, so starting off, I did Urban Legend. At the beginning of the month, went through Netflix and just kind of added everything that I wanted to watch as far as spooky movies, and I got through like 3 of them. So not great, but Urban Legend was one that I really wanted to watch. So this came out in 1998 and it's essentially like a group of college students, which is totally my vibe. I love just like young adult college student era is my favorite because it's not the same restrictions of like a high school group of people in horror movies. You just get more freedom. It's totally believable when they're out just like doing all this partying and stuff. Whereas like now as a 26-year-old woman watching like Pretty Little Liars, for example, it's like, how are you getting away with this shit? How are you just out all of the time? Like it totally takes me out of it because I'm an old bitch now. But anyways, there's a murderer that is killing a bunch of people in ways that correspond to urban legends. I gave this one a 2.5 rating and I thought it was entertaining. I thought that it was like fine, very reminiscent actually of just like 90s movies in general, but it wasn't like a standout for me. It wasn't something that I want to rewatch, but definitely entertaining, and the main character is like kind of whiny and annoying. Which also is kind of, I think, like a thing for the 90s. There's Someone Inside of Your House. This is a new one that was released on Netflix. It is very like teen 90s slasher, but modern, and it seems very low budget, but there's also a lot of like really nice shots. So I do think that they use their budget pretty wisely. Countdown to graduation. Students at this high school are being stalked by a maniac intent on exposing their darkest secrets, terrorizing the victims while wearing a lifelike mask of their face. And then the main character and her group of friends basically are trying to figure out who is doing this and why. This is one of those movies that I would say is totally entertaining to put on during a girls' night where you're drinking and you're like half paying attention to the movie, or if you have emails to reply to, or you're like folding laundry or something. Like it's that kind of a movie where I would be bored if I was just watching this full attention, but it's definitely good to have on in the background because you can like kind of zone out and tune back in and catch up what's happening in the story really easily. For me, the scares, they were very reminiscent of, again, this is the reference of the video, Pretty Little Liars. Actually, yeah. It was very much like a movie version of Pretty Little Liars. I kind of have a soft spot for this movie because my fiance and I watched this in the hotel room the night before we got engaged in Banff, and it is Aftermath. Because I have kind of a soft spot for it, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The wife cheats on the husband, they move to a new house to start a new life, and there's a troubled history. Okay, I would say this movie is perfect for you if you watched The Boy and wished that the creepy old Victorian house was more modern and the acting was worse. All right, and then we have Killer Under the Bed. I have things to say about this. After her husband dies, Sarah moves her daughters, Chrissy and Kylie, names don't matter, to a new city. Kylie hates the move, feeling like they're running away from her dad's memory. When she's bullied at school and is endlessly fighting with her sister, it feels like the world is against her until she discovers a doll riddled with pins. There are a couple things that happen in this movie, and the most upsetting of all of them is not the doll, it is the over-dramatized bully. This bitch, all right, literally comes up to this girl and is like, if you don't give me $100, I'm gonna make your life shit. And then she's like, I literally don't have $100. And she's like, get it, or give me your jacket, or I'm gonna make your life a living hell. Like, it's literally Carrie level bullying, but like 2021 version. The doll was kind of cute. The teacher thing that comes into it, because it's essentially like she finds this voodoo doll and she can be like, oh, I wish that my sister like felt the pain that I feel, and like stick a pin in her leg, or like, oh, I wish my teacher liked me, and then the teacher falls like aggressively madly in love, and it's very creepy. Her sister's leg gets kind of sore and she's like, oh fuck, I fucked up. And it's just, it could be a fun movie. I like the idea of the voodoo doll. I particularly like kind of the ending. I think it's kind of fun to watch, but overall, it's just not a great movie. It's one that you watch because it is so bad. I watched this next movie alone on Netflix. It's also called Pandemic. I think that's what it's called on Netflix. This is very nearly a shot-for-shot recreation of Alive, the Korean movie that is literally the same thing. There's a zombie outbreak. This guy is kept up in his apartment building. He wants to unalive himself because he's so lonely until he meets a girl across the way, and then they have to figure out how to survive. And it is truly the more boring, bad version of Alive. I watched Halloween Kills. I know I said I was going to do a review, but honestly, there's not a ton to say about it, so I'm just gonna give my thoughts here. First of all, I gave this, what did I give this? 2.5 stars. Yep, that stands. So I watched a couple of other people's reviews, and I do agree in that you can tell that they're trying to make this a trilogy, because aside from the town banding together to try and kill Michael Myers finally, not a lot happens. Like, it seems like there's a lot of just kind of people being angry in the span of 2 hours, and you can tell it's leading up to something bigger, but this is very much a filler movie. I have to give the perspective of somebody who's not a major fan of the Halloween series. Like, I think the first one is obviously a classic for a reason. That's very suspenseful. I think a lot of the other movies are very like watchable, or like watchable because it's so bad. This one to me was very boring. I gave it 2.5 because the environment was very spooky and I like the Halloween vibes, and some of the kills were very gory and entertaining. Okay, I went to see No Time to Die, the final James Bond movie in the Daniel Craig iteration of it, and I liked this so much more than I thought. I had seen bits and pieces of James Bond movies with Daniel Craig, and I went with my friend Bronwyn. I just basically asked her to give me kind of like an up-to-the-date speed catch-up round of the other James Bond movies. She did an excellent job. I was able to sit in this and understand without seeing all of the other movies all the way through. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Without, again, being a big fan, first of all, gave this 3.5 stars. I was able to understand why situations were emotionally taxing. I was able to like be involved and care about these characters, and I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was a cool movie to see in theaters because the action is very like fast paced, and there was no time in the movie where I was bored, and it also wasn't one of those action movies that tries to overcomplicate itself. It just, the storyline seemed like, yeah, we have to do this because of that. That makes sense. Like, I enjoyed the movie. Speaking of action movies that try to do too much, I don't know what to say about this. So this movie, In the Shadow of the Moon, a 2019 movie, I gave it 2 stars. It could be really cool, but it's just, it focuses almost on like the wrong character for the movie to be cool. So it's essentially following this police officer on this one night, 1988, where there's like some crazed killer out there murdering people and dissolving their brains, quite literally. The killer dies, and then 10 years later reappears, and 10 years later reappears, and this cop essentially goes crazy, like super obsessed, loses it on the force, like can't work there anymore, and spends all of his time ignoring his daughter and literally just focused on catching this killer because she keeps coming back. I would want to see this movie from the perspective of almost any other character. This would be so cool to watch from the perspective of the killer, or of his daughter, or of the scientist who figures out time travel, or even from the perspective of like one of the people that they kill. You could see like, this is what the timeline would have looked like if this one person didn't die, versus here's what it looks like now because I had to go back in time and kill their ass. They picked the most boring person to follow. Like, some of the reviews literally like, what if we made all the movies in one? At the end of the day, it was just overcomplicated, and it lacked the interest that it could have had if it had followed any other character in this same storyline. And then I watched Deep Impact because I love end of the world movies. So this came out in 1998. It has Tia Leone, Robert Duvall, Elijah Wood. It has literally everyone. Morgan Freeman. I gave this, what did I give it? 3.5 stars. There's a big asteroid coming. It's gonna destroy the Earth. A space mission goes up and tries to like destroy the asteroid, and people on Earth are now going through a lottery of who's going to go into these underground bunkers to survive. It is kind of reminiscent of Greenland, which was also a really good movie, but it follows like different characters, and you see kind of on more of a like societal wide perspective versus Greenland focusing on one family. And then I watched Rim of the World. This came out in 2019. Stranded at a summer camp, aliens attack 4 teens with nothing in common, have to save the world. I gave it 3.5 stars. First of all, you're casting people who are legitimately 13 and 14 years old, and you are having them speak in ways that teenagers actually speak and care about things that teenagers actually care about, like kissing a girl. But you're also doing it while giving them this like outrageous task to save the world, and it was so enjoyable and it was so good, and it is what I want out of teen movies. I want to see teens being cast as teen movies. This would have been such a shitty movie if you had instead cast like 25-year-olds being like, yeah bro, I'm 12. And then the last movie that I watched, my fiance and I watched this on Halloween, Saint Maud. Oh my Maud. It was a ride. It was a ride, definitely. It was very slow in parts, and you could tell that it was building to something. I really liked it. I gave this, what, 3.5 stars? Yeah. So essentially Maud is this character who, she has newly found religion, and she is watching over a woman who is on her deathbed, and she's just trying so hard to be her savior, and you get these glimpses of like a dark past and obviously like mental illness. The last scene of the movie was incredible. Like I just love the dichotomy of her interpretation of what's going on versus everybody else's. It was super interesting while being very slow. There wasn't a moment where it was like, okay, they could have cut this scene, because every scene is adding tension and backstory. And like there was one moment where one of her old like coworkers comes over to her house, and the whole time I was like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen to this coworker? Like, and you're tense for everyone around her because you can tell that she's gonna break, and it was really good. Otherwise, I have been catching up on the current season of Married at First Sight, and I'm still very slowly watching Buffy. I really need to dive back into it, but you know how it is when like you've already watched a show 75 times and then you get addicted to a new one like Below Deck. It's just, there's too many good things to watch and not enough hours in the day. But anyways, that is everything that I watched this month. I am very excited to watch some new good movies in November. Anyways, I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching this video. Thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe down below, because I'm going to be doing secret giveaways for the next 2 months. I have got, oh god, this heavy ass box of things to give away to you guys over the next 2 months, so stay tuned. That is it. I love you so much, and I will see you very soon. Bye guys.